rookie status.
Yeah, but
Here
here's the
it
thing
is.
though, if the Mets still get in, and that's a tall order because Miami just been eliminated. They lost tonight, but they still got Alcantara and the Marlins' three best pitchers this weekend.
We'll see what happens. All right.
So yeah, this is gonna be a stressful weekend.
All right. I'm already doing my recording. So
Okay.
here we go. Guys, way back on the show, a long time ago, I think it was like 3 years ago, when the pitch clock just started in baseball, Anthony Strait called the pitch clock. What did you say? It was your bay, if
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
that's
mistaken?
oh yeah, that's Bay. I mean, pitch count is
Yeah.
definitely Bay.
Question. Now with ABS coming to baseball in 2026 officially, does that fall into the category of your fave five? Does Bay get kicked to the side a little bit because she's now 4 years old at that point?
Oh, you think Leonardo DiCaprio is just date younger has time go on? No, no
I
way.
mean,
No. I gotta see it in action first. If you want to give it anything, give it the ghost running extra innings. I absolutely hate that rule. I don't care if it benefited the Mets a couple of times this week. I hate that rule. It's like you basically just gotta bunt someone over, get a sac fly to score. I mean,
both
if
teams
you're
did the same thing though. So
yeah,
I mean,
but if you're the road team, you basically have to score twice and to give
yeah.
yourself a real chance of winning. Whether the home team can score once and game over.
Well, Bays, it's time for our football frenzy. We'll talk about robot umpires another time. That's Jay Kaplan. We just talked to Anthony Strait. I'm Steven Rabinowitz. This is the Football Fest edition of On the Sports Lines. Bye bye, baseball. We'll talk to you next week. Football Fest, Football Frenzy, Football Futures. Take any F word. Actually, no. Let's just stay with one F word. We don't want to go into our F word vocabulary this week. On today's show, the locals, the backups, and the blockbusters in college football. Sounds like something Sinclair might use to preempt late night programming, but no,
Oh,
that's just our show's
boo!
agenda. That's just our show's agenda. Subscribe to All the Sports Lens on Facebook and YouTube, and see more of our agenda, please. It's a good agenda. It's good for all. Anyway,
Mhm.
let's move on to MetLife Stadium's co-tenants, and apparently rent is due for both of them. Starting with the New York Giants, who have started out just about as bad as you think, 0-3 again, and because of Russell Wilson's two less than stellar performances against defenses that would actually be considered on the varsity level, he has been
Mhm.
asked to take a seat by coach Brian Daboll. The Jaxson Dart era will start on Sunday against the Gulp Los Angeles Chargers, the undefeated Los Angeles Chargers, mind you. We'll get to the rookie after we do our week 3 recon. So, Jay,
Mhm.
after a performance that can be considered a little bit less than inspiring on the offensive side of the board, it was offensive this past Sunday versus the Kansas City Chiefs. You got to take away from that side, and ain't good.
I'm going to try and start this segment each time we do it with the good before I get to the bad and possibly the ugly by this unit. As we all know that in recent seasons, the first has been a lot harder to come by than the other two. So with that as the setup, the silver lining, aka the good, in the dark cloud of a 22-9 week 3 loss to the Chiefs is the emergence of rookie running back Cam Scadaboo, who tallied 121 yards from scrimmage with 60 yards rushing on 10 carries on the ground, 6 yards a pop, and a touchdown, along with 6 catches for 61 yards, 10.2 per catch. His ability to be a weapon in both the ground game and the passing game was a big reason he was drafted in the 4th round of this year's draft. He put up 2,316 yards from scrimmage, 1,711 on the ground, averaging 5.8 a carry, 605 through the air, averaging 13.4 catch in his senior season at Arizona State. I think this game should officially bump him up to running back 1 on the depth chart and definitively increase his snap count, which was topped by a wide margin among the running backs as he had more than Tracy and Singletary combined in this game, 39-27. As we all know, how a running back like this, with his skill set, combination of power, speed, and just plain old refusal to go down, can be a quarterback's best friend. Now for both the bad and the ugly, and unfortunately, they pretty much start and end with Russell Wilson. I'll admit I got a little overly optimistic about the potential for Russ in the passing game after his week 2 performance against Dallas. And then I saw enough pieces of the game on Red Zone and read the recap on Monday from the Bears' 31-14 win over the Cowboys, where Caleb Williams went 19 of 28, that's 67.9% completion, for 298 yards, 10.6 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a career-high 142.6 passer rating. I felt like maybe I didn't give the Cowboys defense, especially their secondary, enough blame for the numbers that Russ put up. Russ was just 18 of 32. That's 56.3% completion for just 160 yards. That's just 5 yards per attempt. No scores, 2 picks, a 43.7 passer rating. There was only one chunk play of 20-plus yards in the passing game for the Giants. Short pass to Scadaboo, who turned it into a 21-yard gain. Make that 2 chunk plays. And a 26-yard completion down the deep middle of the field to Wan'Dale Robinson, which was the only deep completion on the day. Russ had 9 other deep shots go incomplete and 4 more incompletions that were voided by defensive penalties. Overall, just 1 big-time throw against 3 turnover-worthy throws and a 24.1 bad throw percentage. That's the 14th time in his career he's hit that mark or worse. And when you add his week 1 performance to the equation, Wilson is just 1 of 12 on passes, throwing 20-plus yards downfield for a total of 26 yards. Yeah, that one to Robinson on Sunday, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. That comes out to a 2.2 yards per attempt and a flat 0 passer rating on deep throws for weeks 1 and 3. Look, making matters worse, and we still haven't gotten to the ugly yet, is that Wilson's play when under pressure when being blitzed continues to decline. Against KC, he was 5 for 15 for 33 yards when facing pressure. He was sacked twice and had a 43.9 passer rating. 3 of his 10 incompletions were throwaways, bringing his season total to 12, tying him for the most in the NFL. Granted, not all throwaways are bad plays, but the ones in this game were, which I'll get to in a sec. His EPA per pass, success rate, and completion percentage when under pressure are all 27th or worse among NFL quarterbacks. Now we get to the ugly, which is Wilson's inability to get the Giants into the end zone from the red zone, especially in this game. Probably the straw that broke Dable's back, as they managed only 1 touchdown and 3 trips, with the final trip likely the final straw. Wilson threw 3 incompletions that had 0 chance of being caught. Effectively, they were throwaways, including 1 on 4th down that just sailed out of the end zone. Since 2022, Wilson leads all NFL quarterbacks in throwaways on 3rd and 4th downs with 33. Through 3 weeks, he's 4 of 18. That's just 22.2% completion for 16 yards, 0 touchdowns in the red zone. The Giants ranked 31st in red zone offense after 3 weeks, just a 20% red zone TD percentage, 2 in 10 trips. Wilson has the worst red zone total EPA, red zone EPA per pass, and red zone success rate of any quarterback in the NFL by a wide margin. But it's not that simple, and I'll get to that in our next segment. The whole point of bringing in Russell Wilson was that his experience, leadership, and ability to take and make big shots and push the ball downfield in the passing game, a primary indictment of Daniel Jones last season. So when Malik Neighbors has only 2 receptions on 7 targets for just 13 yards, Wan'Dale Robinson has just 1 reception on 4 targets for 26, and Darius Slayton converts all 4 of his targets into just 30 yards, the Giants' passing game looks eerily similar to the one they struggled with last season under Jones. Well, something was going to change. If Russ ain't cooking, then Russ ain't playing. And by the numbers and the eye test, he probably should. But again, it's not that simple.
Well, we'll talk about it in a second. By the way, Tyrone Tracy's out for 3 weeks. So I think when Scadaboo comes back, when Tracy comes back, I don't think they want to peter out Scadaboo. I know Scadaboo seems like a train that could go forever and ever and ever, but you don't want to put too many miles on him, especially in a season.
Not early, no.
Especially in a season that already seems lost. So after all of that, you have a defensive performance to talk about, a lot better than previous weeks, Anthony. But still, there are negatives and there are positives. A lot more good and bad, and maybe a little bit of ugly that you can look at on that side of the ball.
Yeah. By the way, Jay, to add to insult to injury, this is Malik Neighbors' 5th quarterback that he's going to be playing with in just a short career. So yeah, do you want to talk about having to adjust to different to changing of the guard one too many times, meeting neighbors? I think that's mastered at this point. Um, look, the defense kept the Giants in the game. Obviously, this is not obviously the Kansas City Chiefs offense is missing some key players, so the explosive plays are not there as frequently. But they held in there. By the way, Brian Burns has been by far the Giants' best player. Got another sack on Sunday night. He has four total. And it's really been the catalyst on that front four defensive line that has kind of been underperforming as of late. They had a really hard. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, like of course, but they couldn't get the guy down even when he had opportunity to do so. But Drew Phillips had a really, really rough
Well,
night. I mean, think about his week two against Dallas when he had 11 tackles, eight solo, two pass defenses, played very well, matched up against CeeDee Lamb, and even got an interception in that game against Dallas. Week three, it just seemed like he was literally Kansas City saw something in the play in the film, and they targeted and went after him completely. On back, he had an illegal hands to the face penalty, and then followed it up with a 50-yard pass interference penalty towards the end of the first half that essentially gave Kansas City a cheap field goal before halftime on a play where Patrick Mahomes just heaved it with no one to throw the ball to, just hoping for anything to happen. But then you also watch that he got on a touchdown pass he was beat on. He was playing a little too far off coverage. Only had three tackles in this game. The the Giants was literally looking at him as a guy, a key concept defensive backfield, and someone that you don't have to week two was going to progress. But it's pretty clear that he took a step back last week. He's a little slow off the line of scrimmage. He plays bump and run. He's not getting the contact, at least slow down the receivers. And teams are starting to see that he's become a bit of a liability to throw it downfield, you throw the ball. So until he's cleaned that up, they're going to be attacking him a lot more. But the defense is on the field so much, and it's obvious they're getting worn down. And towards later as the game progressed, we saw it in Week 1 in Washington, a close game where the defense kept them in it until the wheels fell off. We saw it last Sunday night. The defense can only do but so much. They're not making the big plays like forcing turnovers. They even missed an opportunity to recover a fumble on a backwards pass that probably would have gotten the Giants back in the game had they been able to recover it in the third quarter. So there's a lot of things that the Giants have been able to do, but it's not leading to leading to wins. And because we don't know what exactly is going to happen with the offense, it's putting more pressure on the defense. By the way, another quiet night from Dexter Lawrence, and now it's going to be a bit of a concern if you're the Giants because he's literally your best defensive tackle, one of the best defensive tackles in the game. One tackle, two quarterback hits. So the defense has a long way to go. They dodged the bullet though, but Brian Burns got hurt, but was able to come back in the game. So that could have made the situation a lot worse going into next week's game against a Charger team that loves to run, and now you got a defense that has had a hard time stopping the run so far this season.
Yeah, I think the one thing it was a better performance though, considering from what we saw in week number two. Although, to be fair, it is a little the Chiefs just aren't even anywhere close to, as Jay usually says, a fully operational Death Star
not even
currently
close.
right
Not
now.
even.
I don't even know if they're really out of the garage yet, but we'll see how that goes. So the obvious answer to the question of who to watch for on the Chiefs would be Justin Herbert, but I do want to take a look more at the people who will be in the backfield, or the person that will be in the backfield. Ironically enough, Jay had seen it in many years that Najee Harris was a picture of consistency in terms of health in
Yep.
Pittsburgh. And then on Sunday, he got a season-ending injury
It's
pretty
brutal.
much
Yeah.
immediately at the third quarter of that game. Um, and now Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, their second-round pick this year, is the guy who has been pretty much tasked with the lion's share of the work in the backfield on Sunday against Denver, a very good defense, by the way, who still is one of the best defenses in the league, even though they haven't really looked like it first few weeks. 19 carries for Hampton, 129 yards and 1 touchdown. And the thing is, you have a Jim Harbaugh team, and even though Justin Herbert has taken a huge step up, as it seems like in the first month of the year this year, this is a team that needs to run the ball to really be a Harbaugh identified team. They only were below league average in rushing yards per game last year with 110.7. And it's going to be up to Hampton to really make sure that this team kind of gets a little bit of that balance back. And because Herbert's worn down throughout the seasons. And I think the one thing that Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, is going to do is also make sure Hampton, as we just talked about Cam Scatterbridge just a minute ago, it's a rookie. You want to keep him fresh, especially because it looks like the Chargers are not going to just be playing October, November, and December football. They want to get that AFC West championship, and they want to be going very far into the 2026 playoffs. And the best way to do it is to have a good running game. And I think Omari and Hampton, who, unlike North Carolina quarterbacks, who, as we all know, are complete failures, and that we have proof of that now, seemingly, running backs, and I don't think Bill Belichick's doing too much to really improve that when we get to this year. But
you already given up on Drake May, huh? Really? Already?
It's not great to start off. Let's just say that. It's not great.
I got to step in here on this.
No, don't step in.
I'm the quarterback guy, but I got to say this.
It's incomplete.
He gets a pass for last year's debacle under Antonio Pierce. Okay, the grade starts now.
It wasn't Antonio Pierce, by the way.
Sorry,
it was Gerard Mayo.
That's okay. Sorry.
It does start now, but it hasn't been amazingly great the first 3 weeks of the season. And I know that but that's another story for another time. I think really what I'm seeing right now is this team needs to have a good amount of balance and to really be a Jim Harbaugh-like team. And I think the way to do it is to lean on a back that's going to be a bell cow. And I think Omari and Hampton can do that, Jay.
I think he can too, Rabbi, but I got to say, I have been pleasantly surprised at the adaptability of Greg Roman, who seemed in his previous stint with Harbaugh to be adverse to throwing the ball. I wouldn't call him Woody Hayes in 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But I mean, it's kind of nice to see him actually open the offense up, let Herbert do his thing. He's got great wide receivers to throw to, 3 studs, and he's doing that. He has shown that he can carry this offense. I agree with you. They need a Harbaugh team will always have a bell cow running back. That's not going to change. But I tell you this, the fact that this offense is more even and maybe even leaning more towards
it's more towards the other. It's
on
towards
early
passing.
downs, and letting Herbert, when he's in rhythm, do his thing. I think there is more balance to this offense, and that is the key thing. I got to tell you though, Rabbi, I was on board 100% with Hampton as your player, and then the Giants made the change in starting quarterback. So I will say this, purely from a Jaxson Dart angle, the most important player to watch on the Chargers is Derwin James, because Jaxson Dart's going to have to find him every time he steps up to the line of scrimmage.
Oh, that the defense is. Oh yeah, no, that's the. I want to kind of lean that into the next segment too. But the one thing is, I think we know what's happening with Anthony. But one thing, by the way, don't forget they got Keenan Allen pretty much weeks before the season started off waivers in Chicago, and he's really become as dependable as he was. He should never have left Los Angeles in the
him, Johnston, and McConkey. Come on,
yeah. McConkey's even just had a quieter year to start off, and but this team is just really on all cylinders right now. A lethal team. We'll see how they go on. All right, let's circle on the dartboard back to the QB. The Giants' hope is a bullseye. Jaxson Dart on Tuesday was confirmed to be the Giants starter for this week, and Wednesday, Brian Daboll said it's for the rest of the season with Russell Wilson as backup. What did you get Jameis Winston for? with a schedule that just provides 4 out of the next 6 games against unbeaten teams, including 2 meetings with the world champion Eagles in 17 days. Anthony, right move or wrong move to start the Dart era this Sunday?
It's a right move and a desperation move. I mean, Jay, you talked about it. I mean, you saw the goal line possessions for the Giants,
Hmm. And I'm
and
going to
Russell
get more into
Wilson
that.
and Russell Wilson is basically, and we saw this with the Steelers too when he was last season, probably playing a little too safe and throwing the ball out of the back of the end zone. At least give your guys a chance to,
Yeah.
go up and make a play for you. But this is the Giants need a shot in the arm. I mean, you're 0-3. The schedule, at least through the first half, is not getting any easier.
No, it is forbidding.
And Brian Dable right now is playing much coaching for his job, and we all know that.
Mhm.
And possibly Joe Shane being general manager for his job. Who knows what's going to happen if the wheels fall off of the Giants completely? But Jaxson Dart played well in the preseason. Of course, that's preseason. I mean, you
Grain
can't
of
really put
salt.
Yeah, it's a grain of salt. Don't want to put too much into it. He could play 32 or 47 passes for 372. Best game was against the Jets, 14-17, 137, and a touchdown. But I think it's the energy and the energy he brings to the huddle. His will, the fact that his willingness to just leave it out on the field. But also, I think his teammates gravitate to his attitude, and I think that's something that does go a long way, and it's definitely a change that the Giants desperately need. Now with Russell Wilson, and look, he's a professional. He said he doesn't want to train. He's going to stick it out. He's going to help Jaxson Dart as much as he can. And that reminds me of Kurt Warner, who clearly had plenty in the tank left, and Eli Manning became the starter, and Kurt Warner, being a professional, helped him out. But with this offensive line, I'm a little worried because I talked, Rabbi, you and I talked about that Cowboys documentary. Troy Aikman, I'm surprised he survived his rookie season with the beating he took behind
He
that
wouldn't,
back.
in this day and age, he wouldn't.
Yeah, it was a shocker that he survived 16 games his rookie season. Just getting the crap kicked out of him every week. And I am worried when you're throwing a rookie QB with this kind of schedule, with an offensive line that isn't great at all, that isn't great as far as pass protection, that eventually he gets enough beatings the the mistakes are piling up that start losing his confidence. I mean, we saw what happened with Daniel Jones over time when Daniels just started to go south in a hurry. Um, and that is a thing that concerns me with starting Jackson Dart. But I think right now it's the right move because it's 0-3 and it's getting close to midnight sooner than later. And you gotta only 5 teams in the history of the National Football League have ever rebounded from an 0-3 start to make the playoffs. And the Giants got a long mountain to climb just to get win number one when you look at the next few games. And even starting this week with the Chargers, even playing 3 hours earlier than usual in the Eastern Time Zone. So right now, you throw him out there, you hope for the best. Maybe he lights a spark and the Giants can find something going on offense because the defense cannot be on the field for 35, 40 minutes a game and think, they're going to be able to make stops late in the game and be able to hold on. So, like I said, it's the right move. It's the only move. It's a Hail Mary at this point.
By the way, 0-3. No one has recovered from that since the 14-team playoff started in 2020. So even still more of a mountain to climb. Jay, you kind of alluded to it earlier. It's not just Russell Wilson that has caused this. It's just been a bad play calling standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to preface this that a lot of what the first half of what I'm about to say is kind of based on a conversation that Rabbi and I had in the aftermath of Sunday Night Football when the rumors started flying faster and more furious than they did in week one. You guys know how I feel. I've made no secret that I felt Dart should at least get at least a partial redshirt season, as a rookie. I thought that bringing in a pair of veteran quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, remember, they brought both of those guys in before they had even the thought about potentially having an opportunity to draft Dart. I thought, having these guys on board would allow Dart a chance to learn the NFL game without the shell shock. But then Dart had a lights out preseason, as Anthony alluded to, which everyone overreacted to, except maybe the three of us and Joe Tafaro. And Dable made him QB2 instead of Winston, which automatically indicated that it was a matter of when, not if, Dart would take over as QB1. Especially once Dable began running Dart into the game for a few snaps here and there in RPO situations, all of which resulted in a running play of some kind. After Wilson reverted to the week 1 version of himself in week 3, and the offense once again struggled to do much of anything, leading to the team falling to 0-3, Dable felt he had no choice but to start the Jaxson Dart era. When the rumors and rumblings started to grow and increase in volume on Tuesday, Rabbi texted me an excerpt of the transcript from Dable's presser after week 3, which sounded very much like the one after week 1, where the Giants bench boss wouldn't commit to Wilson as the starting quarterback leading into the next game, which just like after week 1 fueled the speculation that Dart would be taking over, something Rabbi and I both had issue with Dable doing again, meaning in terms of how he handled the, who's starting a quarterback, handling that question. Earlier in the day on Tuesday, I said to Rabbi, that Dable fueling the constant when will Dart start noise every time Wilson struggles creates the narrative that everything wrong with the Giants offense is Wilson's fault, which, as I noted in our previous segment, is not the case. And I'm sorry, but I don't see how replacing him with a rookie will fix their issues on third down. They're 31st in the NFL. They're completing only converting only 27.5%, 1 for 10 against Kansas City. And their issues in the red zone, where the coaching staff seemingly has no idea what to run because so much of their offensive identity has been tied to Wilson's ability to hit big plays on deep balls. I rewatched those red zone throws that we talked about in the fourth quarter of the game against Kansas City. And while they had zero chance of being caught, the plays that were called had zero chance of success against the coverages that Kansas City employed. So Wilson had no choice but to throw them away. And that's on the coaching staff and their inability to creatively scheme and play call in the red zone. All of this puts a ridiculous amount of pressure on Dart. Hence my agreeing with the Rabbi that giving Dart his first start against the Chargers and that defense, not a good idea. You want to bench Wilson? Fine. Run Winston out there for a game or two, which would have been easier if Dart had been listed as QB3 on the depth chart from jump. I wonder just how much of this change is a football decision, how much of it is due to pressure, internal or external, as the temperature under Dable's seat gets hotter by the week. I know Dable will say that Dart is ready to take on defenses the likes of LA, Philly twice, and Denver in the next 5 games. I wouldn't expect him to say otherwise, even if he doesn't feel that Dart's ready. And in his media session on Wednesday, he did say that he believes that Dart gives the team the best chance to win. Honestly, what else is he going to say? He added that while he discussed the quarterback change with the front office and ownership, ultimately it was his call. Look, we've talked on this show about the school of thought that the only way a quarterback can learn how to play the position at the NFL level is to actually, play. I've never matriculated to that school, but at this point, right or wrong, Dable doesn't have much of a choice. Anthony, I agree with you on that. He got a stay of execution from Mr. Mara by saying that he can do with Dart what he did in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And to be honest, that claim is aging worse and worse each day, especially in light of what Allen has done since Dable left, which has me less and less confident in Dable's actual ability as a coach and developer of quarterbacks. And now Mr. Mara has to judge whether to allow the Dable-Shane experience to continue based on the play of a rookie quarterback and how you determine if what Jaxson Dart puts on film over the next 14 games gives the owner reason to believe that he's the next franchise quarterback, regardless of the team's record, which projects to be closer to the top of the draft than the top of the NFC East.
By the way, I can confirm me and Joe have had delusions a little bit about Jaxson Dart, so it's a little more towards the delusional side, but still kind of topped off. But one thing I wanted to say, Jay, is the fact that you and I have said it to you on several occasions. I've said it. It's hard to go into a transition into a new era with the same era of coaches.
Right.
Say what you will about what Dayball, if he deserved to be fired or not after last season, but having him be kind of in this little transitional period, which was always going to be a bridge year. I think there was a lot of skeptics, but I don't think a
Right,
lot
because
of
even
people
if
were
they didn't
saying,
draft Dart this
yeah.
year, Wilson's only on a 1-year contract. So, like, you agree, this year was going to be some type of bridge.
But again, the bridge is only as good as the coach who has it right now. And the fact is that even though Dayball is considered a motivational developer of
Get
quarterbacks, I think we're kind of saying it a
up on
different
those
way
air
now.
quotes.
The one thing I will say about this is, again, I said it before in the open. Unless you got Jameis Winston solely because of the fact that you didn't know what you wanted to do in the draft, keeping on the roster is almost just useless at this point
Well, he's going to be
because
Dart's backup next year because he's under contract.
he is, but it's still useless because there's nothing you can do with him right now, and he's not getting any younger in this situation. And I don't understand. I don't understand why they made him QB2 to start the season. I know it was all oh, he did really well in the preseason, which is great. I understand that. I think we got to the point where the preseason made him believe that he's ready to go if needed. But the key two words were if needed. And we don't necessarily want to need them in this situation. We wanted to see if the veterans could do what they do. Now, the schedule is possibly the worst in the NFL. If you want to put him in on a bye, that's great. The bye is week 14. So you would only have 4 weeks left to begin with. The New Orleans game is great, but the Philly game is literally 5 days after it. So it was really a question of, do they play him now and just throw his feet to the fire, or do they wait and kind of give him a soft landing? And again, when you have a coach whose ass is on fire, you're going to throw the feet to the fire of the quarterback. And whether it's the right move or the wrong move, the only thing that I think all Giants fans are hoping for, and maybe even the three of us, and even the two of you are hoping for, and all of us are hoping for, is that this doesn't stunt Dart as it goes forward. We kind of talked about it with Drake May beforehand. Starting a rookie early could change the opinions. It is a redshirt year, but you have tape. And that tape is going to be showed for years and years to come. It's just a question of, can you improve what you're doing now? Can you look impressive now? Or is this just a harbinger of another bad regime to come?
Yeah.
That's pretty simple as that. And of course, I think we know what people don't want. All right. On to the other 0-3 team at MetLife, the New York Jets. And if close only counted in horseshoes and hand grenades, then anyway, a pair of 2-point losses decided by a down-to-the-wire field goal, sandwiching a smattering of Buffalo chicken. I mean, a smashing by the Buffalo Bills. I'm hungry. But Monday night, the Jets get a worthy opponent of the same pain, the equally 0-3 Miami Dolphins. This game is on ESPN. It did not get flexed to Comedy Central. Don't believe the memes. All right.
That was funny, though.
It was funny, but unfortunately, this is what we get. Anyway, a tale of two halves, really, for the Jets on offense, Jay. Yeah. And I'm wondering, you have a lot more good to look at this as a takeaway, but overall, it's the same result as 5 other teams in the NFL is 0-3.
Yeah, I tell you, as much as, Jets fans, I'm sure, got psyched, when they went ahead, when they took the lead coming all the way back from being down 23-6, I just kind of looked at the time and I just shook my head and said, yeah, but Baker has over a minute and a half and 2 timeouts.
I almost feel like he did it on purpose just so he could come back and come back in every game for the rest of the season.
But first team in NFL history to win each of their first 3 games by having to score on the final possession. Crazy. But, career resurgence for Baker Mayfield continues, and he, continues to turn his offensive coordinators into the flavor of the week new head coaches. Good on you, Baker. Those guys owe you a steak dinner, each of them. As you said, Rabbi, a changing quarterback doesn't really change the Jets' fortune, but there is a little bit more positive takeaway compared to last week. While the Jets got more efficient quarterback play from Tyrod Taylor, overall he was 26 of 36, 72% completion, 197 yards. It's only 5.5 per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a 92 passer rating, along with a team high 48 yards rushing on 8 carries, 6 a pop, and we did lose a fumble. The offense still struggled to put points on the board until a furious fourth quarter rally that saw the offense score a pair of touchdowns before falling just short in that 29-27 week 3 loss to the Bucs. Not only a tale of two halves, Rabbi, but a tale of two halves of two halves for both Taylor and the offense. Their first 2 drives, their only first quarter drives, ended with field goals. They had 6 second quarter drives that went as follows: turnover on downs, punt, fumble, punt, interception, halftime. They ran 17 total plays in the second quarter, managed to gain just 11 yards. 3 of the last 4 drives went for negative yardage. None of the drives was more than 4 plays or lasted more than 2 minutes and 6 seconds. They had 1 drive in the entire third quarter. It went 10 plays, lasted 5 minutes and 24 seconds, but managed just 34 yards before the Jets turned it over on downs. Taylor dealt with Tampa Bay's pass rush all afternoon, not surprising, when facing a Todd Bowles defense that's number 4 in the NFL in blitz rate at 34.7%, resulting in 4 sacks, 6 hits, pressure on 23.4% of his dropbacks. That pressure led directly to a strip sack and his interception, both of which happened in the first half and were the lowlights of the offense's struggles. Taylor finished the first half just 10 of 16, 62.5% completion, but just 55 yards, 3.4 per attempt. No touchdowns. That was a pick 6, and a 42.4 passer rating. They came into the fourth quarter, as I said, trailing 23-6, which is when the offense finally decided to wake up from their halftime slumber. Taylor led them on 2 pretty solid touchdown drives. The first at the start of the quarter, 10 plays, 80 yards, ending with Taylor hitting Garrett Wilson for an 11-yard score. Second, closer to the end of the quarter, 11 plays, 73 yards, ending with Taylor hitting Allen Lazard. Yes, he is still a Jet, from 4 yards out. Taylor's second half, especially that fourth quarter, was demonstrably better as he finally found his rhythm in the passing game. 12 of 15, 80% completion, 117 yards, 7.8 attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks, a 138.8 passer rating. But once again, outside of the quarterback, the Jets struggled to do anything in the run game as Braylon Allen and Breece Hall combined for just 51 yards on 15 carries, 3.4 yards a pop. For an offense that Aaron Glenn wants to have eschew a run-first philosophy, this is not getting it done, as the team managed just 99 rushing yards on 23 carries. Yeah, it's 4.3 yards a carry, but it's just 99 yards. Both Hall and Allen have negative EPAs per play, negative EPA per rush, and rush play success rates below 40%. The Jets with Taylor at the controls went with a more up-tempo offense approach in that fourth quarter rally, basically playing their 2-minute offense the entire time. And it resulted in 21 offensive plays, almost as many as they ran in the second and third quarters combined, and more than the 11.4 plays per quarter they averaged in the previous 7 quarters. Taylor's experience and decision-making ability allows them to do that. He completed passes to 6 different receivers during those fourth quarter scoring drives. And I'm not sure they trust Justin, and I'm not sure that they trust Justin Fields, especially in the passing game, the same way. But at the rate the running back room is not producing in the ground game, offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrom may not have much of a choice going forward. Fields remains in the NFL's concussion protocol, but he was a full participant in Thursday's practice. Glenn told reporters that Fields will start the Monday Night Football game against the Dolphins if he clears the protocol. Okay. The Jets know what they get with Taylor. They're still figuring out what they'll get with Fields. And until they do, this offense is going to continue to struggle.
I'm kind of curious to see how much longer Breece Hall is long for the New York Jets, because I feel like that seems to be a spot where one person can kind of more dominate because of the fact that, number one, you can get stuff for Breece Hall. There's a lot of teams that are already starving for running backs, Kansas City. But I think that there's a lot of other teams that could actually show a talent like Breece Hall kind of it, although he has gotten the lion's share of the carries this year. So we'll see what happens. Anthony, it looked good when Aaron Glenn danced on the sidelines on Sunday when he took a 27-26 lead. He got some moves. And then immediately those moves went into pain when the Jets defense had to stop Baker Mayfield for time at the end of the game. Jets defense has been a little up and down this year, mostly down. So, Anthony, give me your defensive takeaways from week 3.
Well, one of the things, as you mentioned, inability to stop Baker Mayfield on that last drive. Mismatch in the Jets secondary, and Emeka Ibuka, 28-yard reception, and then cover zero blitz that was beaten by Sterling Shepard for a 20-yard reception that set up the game in a field goal. And with just knowing a minute left, pretty much personifies a Jet team that just doesn't make a lot of big plays. They're one of 3 teams going into week 4 without a single turnover
Yep.
force in any 3 games. Washington and their opponent, the Miami Dolphins, are the other 2 teams who have yet to force a turnover so far this season. But it's also the yards. I mean, they're on pace to give up the points. They're on pace to give up 527 points, which would be our franchise record. And it's surprising because Aaron Glenn, but also defensive coordinator Steve Wilks, who's had over both combined 30 years of experience, and Wilks was one of the masterminds behind that great 49er defense not too long ago. But you look at the team as well, 19 missed tackles per next gen stacks, which brings their totals of 39 missed tackles in 3 games. I mean, that is a usually high for any team, but a team whose entire reputation the last few years has been based on defense and just waiting for the offense to kind of come around. It's staggering to see this kind of a step back. Um, and by the way, the lone big play came on special teams. The blocked field goal that went back for a touchdown. That tells you that there's just lack of ability to make any plays. But individually, Sauce Gardner probably had one of his worst games statistically. 36.4 grade from Pro Football Focus. 3 catches allowed for 50 for 5 targets, 52 yards, and I have a pass breakup. Called for a pass interference on third and 29. Remember
Hmm.
last season we talked about him getting called more and more for these penalties, these holding penalties downfield and pass interference penalties, and it's starting to pile up a little bit. And I mentioned in our preview show with Joseph Farrow that contract extension he signed looking a lot is looming more and more as his play is starting to kind of deteriorate a little bit. Um, he left the game for a little while with a head injury, was able to come back and finish the game, but then allowed, I don't know if you saw that highlight reel, a one-handed 30-yard catch by Ibuka. Look, I'm not going to fault him for that one. That's just an amazing catch and a great throw by Baker Mayfield. But his stats for this season so far, 7 tackles, no interceptions. He's one of the best players in your team. And one of the things about Sauce Gardner was, at least when you brought him on the Jets, was his ability to at least take away half a field and
Yep.
kind of be that shutdown guy. He's been anything but that for the last couple of seasons now. And now you're going to have to start looking at Sauce Gardner's performance, you know, at some point. And I know it's kind of early. It's still a little early in the season. Things to turn around. If you're the Jets, you look at that, you start getting a little bias or remorse. This continues. It's a good question. But the Jets overall has a team, ranked defense 29th defensively. They're just not. They don't make any. They're not making any game-changing plays, and they're not being able to get stops, get off the field. It just seems like it's just like a running gag with both New York teams with the defensive struggles. In one case, he's still on the field too long. The other team, the other side, they can't get off the field fast enough. And I think I joked about this in our group text earlier. I feel like I'm picking on defensive backs this week.
Well, you kind of are, but it's
I, I,
warranted.
I am, but it is kind of warranted, especially because these are 2 guys. And you talked about Drew Phillips, a young guy for the Giants who had so much upside potential. We've seen it last season. We saw it in week 2 against Dallas and had such a bad game on the national spotlight. Sauce Gardner's an all pro and he's playing this poorly. I don't know what else you can say about the Jets team overall. Will McDonald's your best player, and the best play he does is blocking a field goal and taking it back for a touchdown. That just tell you that the Jets are not getting big plays on either side of football. And if you're gonna win games, you gotta have some game changing plays. You just don't know where it's gonna come from.
Yeah.
I Go ahead. I have some
No,
pushback
I
to
mean
what you're
the only
saying.
thing I'm going to throw in there, what I find interesting about Sauce Gardner is that we have all Joe has forever felt like he's more style than substance. Uh, just purely on the numbers, what I found interesting is while Sauce hasn't 100% passed the eye test this year, he definitely does look like he's regressed a little bit. He's the only cornerback of the three that have played the most snaps who has a passer rating against that's under 100. So take
And
that.
he also, and Jay, you also saw it in week one because he covered the hell out of DK Metcalf in that game.
Yeah.
DK, who has been very good to start
Mm-hmm.
the season, and he's been giving more responsibility. I think you have to see that the fact that Sauce Gardner has actually had to take a little more of the workload. Yes, he's regressed a bit, and of course, the injury in week three doesn't really help. And week two was pretty much a lost cause from the from the word jump. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still kind of an incomplete in terms of what you're giving a grade for. But I think there's still a lot to learn on, especially the Jets' defensive side.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is a team that is now going through the growing pains that they maybe should have started to go through in the Aaron Rodgers era that was going on in East Rutherford.
Yeah, and just you talk about Steve Wilks. I've always been a fan. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. You have to wonder, and I know that Aaron Glenn hired him because they're of the same mind philosophically, but you have to wonder if outside of a couple of guys here or there, Quinn Williams, maybe Sauce, and maybe a couple of others, how many of these guys on this defensive unit are actually good schematic fits for the type of defense that Glenn and Wilks want to run? It's the same with the Giants, where not a lot of these guys are schematic and skill set fits for the defense that Shane Bowen runs. So it's going to be interesting to see which defensive coordinator adapts better to the personnel that he has instead of trying to force the personnel that he has to play his scheme, which may not be the right move.
I know the answer to that question. I know the
Yeah,
answer
you
to
do.
that question. It's not Shane.
No, probably
So
not.
I know I said look before you leap and don't criticize a player. This is like the money that they're making if they're not performing up to par. But I'm going to lie and just do all of that and talk about Tua Tagovailoa on the Miami Dolphins, who
Kind of have to.
you kind of have to. I know we don't want to ever talk about hot take stuff, but did get criticized earlier today
Yes, I saw
by
the quote,
Cam
by the way.
Newton,
Yes.
basically saying I like quiet to win because he's not winning. He's talking about all of the players who are currently right now paid less than him. I think mentioning Patrick Mahomes is one of the
Mm.
cases, but we don't really look at salary and being like, has Tua regressed? And the answer is quite equivocally, yeah, he has. It's been tough. I mean, just because of the fact that the shine is off. He had the injuries last year, but he's already thrown 4 interceptions in his first 3 games. He only threw five, remember, in his first season in 2020. And he has a rating right now of 87.1. That's right now his lowest. QBR is in the toilet. It's at 35.8. Played a little bit better in his Thursday night game last week against Buffalo. They didn't ask him to do a lot. He only threw for 22 for 34 for 146, 2 touchdowns. But the play that will be looked at was the interception
Yeah.
that he threw, which was just
Ugh.
not something that you could do. He had a cover in his face, but he looked the wrong way, and it was in Buffalo's hands, literally just like that. And I think you saw the talent of this guy coming out of Alabama. By the way, who was his offensive coordinator at Alabama? Why, it was Brian Daboll, by the way,
Hmm.
just a heads up. The one that actually he benched Jalen Hurts for him in that national championship game. Worked out. But and the question is, like, going forward, is Tua the best fit for a good team? Now, I think he's still a QB, like a a tier 3 quarterback. I think he's a tier 3 or a tier 4 quarterback. I think he's still a starter in this league. Because, again, there's not a lot of starters in this league. You have 30 teams, you need 30 starters, technically, when you go by the combination, when you go by the letter of the law definition. But he's regressed. He hasn't seen things clearly on the field, I think. It's just, is he playing scared? Is he playing to the point where there's just no confidence anymore in the combination of Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa? And I'm wondering, like I said, the stats have just gone down year after year. I mean, he only played the full season of 17 games in 2023 where he threw for 4,600 yards. But you saw he had a rating about the same last year, 101.4, 101.1 the season before. It's just, you don't really know what you're getting now with Tua Tagovailoa on the field. And I think the confidence and swagger that the Miami Dolphins had just 2 years ago as one of the better teams, the better offenses in the NFL, who was setting records. They were scoring 70 points against the Denver Broncos pretty much this time 2 years ago. All of that is just now kind of deteriorated. And I'm wondering, when Brian Flores basically said, I don't want Tua as my quarterback, and he got drafted anyway by the combination of general manager Chris Greer and probably a little bit of a attaboy from owner Stephen Ross in there. I'm wondering, was Brian Flores right the whole time? We'll see. We'll see how he does this Monday versus the Jets. This is a get back game for him, because if he can't do it here, there's no room to move forward.
No, I mean, and Rabbi, I looked it up when you were throwing out the tiers question. He's in the 2025 tiers, quarterback tiers that Mike Sando put out for the Athletic before the season started. Tua stayed in tier 3, but he dropped further down in the tier 3. His EPA numbers per play, per pass, his success rate, his overall EPA, all of these are 25th or below through the first 3 weeks of the season. He has to say that he has struggled. There is something going. There is definitely some disconnect in Miami. It makes you wonder how much of this is the NFL has figured out Mike McDaniel's scheme. Tua has become predictable. And how much of it is Tyreek Hill mouthing off at the end of last season, saying, I'm out of here, and then attempting to walk that back because he obviously wasn't out of there. You just wonder how much of a schism that created in the locker room. And the last thing that a coach and a quarterback, and make no mistake, both of them are on the hot seat in Miami, the last thing either of them need is some trouble and a relationship with their number one receiver being dysfunctional at best.
Mike McDaniel doesn't seem to me as the kind of conflict resolution guy that you would need to go through anything in your team.
No,
so we'll see how it goes forward. It's not his thing. I think it's something that you look at him and he's like, oh, it's cute. He's funny. He's actually charismatic. And then you look and then you see all of a sudden that he's struggling, and it's like, oh, he doesn't have anything for this. And you're kind of seeing that right now with the Miami Dolphins. So Comedy Central enjoy the Jets and the Dolphins on Monday night. All right. They say behind every great man is a much more amazing woman. By the way, happy birthday to my beautiful wife, Randy.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday!
So,
yeah, you married up. I've told you that more than once.
Oh, I know I've married up. I definitely know I've married up. Okay. But they also say behind every NFL quarterback is a failed former starting quarterback that just has been enough to continue on in case of emergency. That's what they tell me. That's what they say.
I'm sticking Chase Daniel on you for that comment.
Chase, you weren't even good enough to be a usual QB team. Man.
Hey,
luckily,
I'll stick each one of the quarterbacks we're about to talk about on you.
Oh, no. Those quarterbacks are really good. They're just failed former starting quarterbacks. Let's be fair. Now, With that being said, let's talk about how some of the QB2s did in this backup week of week 3. Isn't every week a backup week now just because of being out of
Not to this extent, but
not to this extent, but we're already there. Anthony,
what
Carson
do we have?
Wentz.
Four backups playing this past week. Two against
we had
each other?
five. We
Five.
had 5.
There we go.
Including
right, counting Tyrod Taylor, right?
Yep. Anthony, Carson Wentz, starter for 6 different teams now in 6 years. Where did he go here?
6 years he started for a different team. That's hilarious.
First quarterback to do that. Hey, look, Carson Wentz is one of the biggest what-ifs. I mean, he got hurt during the Eagles Super Bowl run in 2017, and obviously, you know what Nick Foles was able to do the rest of the way. But it is a bit of a what-if. Keep in mind, a couple of years ago, he was starter for Indianapolis and almost got them to the playoffs. So he's had a couple of opportunities where he had the chance to kind of establish himself as the guy, and it just didn't work out. But now he is, on team number 6 and year number 6 since then, since he's bounced around the league. And here's the list of the teams, by the way. The Eagles, 2020. Colts, 2021. The Commanders, 2022. By the way, the Giants beat him on Sunday Night Football that helped them get to the playoffs that season. The Chiefs, 2023. The Rams last season. And now the Minnesota Vikings, which is, by the way, his childhood team that he grew up rooting for. So, it's a great story that he gets to actually play for the team he grew up rooting for. Filling in for the injured J.J. McCarthy, who has a high ankle sprain, and we know little babies take quite a while to kind of heal out, anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, and that's just being nice about it. But he played well, 14 to 20, 173, 2 touchdowns. He didn't have to do a lot. The Vikings absolutely routed the Cincinnati Bengals 48-10, who was also playing with a backup quarterback with Joe Burrow being out pretty much done for the season. He looked comfortable in Kevin O'Connor's offense. He didn't make any mistakes. Avoided pressure. There was some of the semblance of the guy who was an MVP candidate before that injury that knocked him out of the 2017 season. But also the thing is he finished with a passer rate of 129.8, the second highest of his career. Connected with Justin Jefferson 5 times for 75 yards. Touchdown passes, 12 yards to Josh Oliver, and a 5-yarder to T.J. Hawkinson. He didn't play hero ball because we up big, you don't have to play hero ball.
Nope.
But the next 2 games being on a roll. By the way, outside the Jacksonville Jaguars, has ever been a team that has played back-to-back international games voluntarily like the Minnesota Vikings? We Rabbi and I, we always get on the Jaguars because of the All Elite Wrestling connection and the cons. But in this case, the Vikings voluntarily doing it. That's just wacky. But besides that point, it's clear McCauley's not ready to come back. And obviously, after these next 2 games, you have the bye week. So then that gives McCauley a little more time. Carson Wentz has shown that he can manage the offense, not making any mistakes, at least keep the ball rolling until McCauley's ready to get back in. Now, O'Connor did not commit to starting McCauley once he's healthy and ready to return. But then they have to bye week, so he'll have some time to think it over. But it's a great story for Carson Wentz. You got the fact he's been bouncing around quite a bit. He's been a star-crossed athlete. He had the great season, the injuries, bounced around, and then in 2021, a chance to get the Colts to the playoffs, and that didn't work out. Same day with Washington. He just seemed like a crestfallen player. But he get another opportunity at the very least to contribute to a Viking team that hasn't done a lot offensively, but the defense is definitely there to at least keep the ball rolling. At least almost, okay? At least manageable. Guys, some rabbis we actually they're a little more manageable, but at the very least,
almost
at least
come on. Let's just call this what it is. Okay. No disrespect to Carson Wentz. Okay. But he came to Minnesota and he's after spending a season with the Rams, he comes in with some basic knowledge of the Vikings playbook and offensive scheme and philosophy because O'Connell is from the McVay tree. So he's got a little bit of that to begin with. And let's kind of put it out there. Yeah, O'Connell has basically shown us that he can turn anyone into a good quarterback in his system. Okay. Yes, it helps to have those two guys on the outside. It helps to have their tight end, and it helps to have Brian Flores running one of the most ridiculous defenses in the NFL. But come on. O'Connell has shown that he can basically make anyone a bare minimum, at least a serviceable NFL quarterback.
I don't know, Jay. I don't know.
I'll sign up for that.
Well, you're not a quarterback, so come on. That doesn't,
Yeah, but I was calling for the occasional halfback pass.
That's like saying, could he turn Christian McCaffrey into a serviceable NFL?
That was 15, but I was 15 after Connor does. Okay?
Guys, before we get into all of your quarterback and playing, by the way, which one of those wide receivers is Isaiah Rodgers, by the way, for the Vikings, who had the best performance and the only ever perfect grade.
Hell of an impersonation of Justin Jefferson, right?
The only ever perfect grade, by the way, on defense in PFF history, when you get a pick six and a peanut punch touchdown leading to a scoop and score and play amazing coverage. The Vikings have a excellent defense that a lot of quarterbacks can hang their head on as long as they play meaningful, almost remedial, serviceable play.
There you go.
Speaking of great defenses and quarterbacks who play remedial, serviceable play, Mac Jones. He didn't have it as easy as he did in week number 2 in the 16-15 win against the Arizona Cardinals, but after getting knocked out against the Arizona Cardinals, he got back up again. You're never going to keep him down.
Wow. I wanted to see if you were going to go full Chumbawamba on us, but, props for playing the bit all the way out. Nicely done.
We'll be singing when we're winning. You looked at his week 2 performance. How was week 3?
Very nicely done, Rabbi. Look, Jones didn't have as big a game as he did in week 2, but he did enough to lead the injury-depleted 49ers. We seem to use that phrase every season of late. Now they've lost Joey Bosa. To a 16-15 win over the Cardinals in their first divisional game of the season, including recovering from a safety resulting from an offensive holding call in the end zone that put Arizona up 15-13. Give a lead with coming from that. Recovered to lead the Niners on a 10-play, 63-yard drive in a minute 46 to win the game on a 35-yard field goal with 4 seconds left on the clock. Overall, Jones, 27 of 41, 65.9% completion, 384 yards, 6.9 per attempt, 1 TD, 1 pick, 83.8 passer rating. However, unlike last week where he held onto the ball for too long, resulting in 3 sacks, he got rid of the ball a lot quicker, dropping his average time to throw from 2.78 versus the Saints to 2.59 versus the Cardinals, which helped offset his being pressured on 23.8% of his dropbacks, up from 16.3% against New Orleans. The quicker average time to throw also resulted in Jones going 20 of 21, 95.2% completion percentage on short passes, classified as ones that are from 0 to 9 yards downfield. Those accounted for 154 yards, 7.3 per attempt. That touchdown, a fourth quarter 1-yard toss to fullback Kyle Juszczyk, and a 113.1 passer rating. Like last week, Jones played point guard, getting the ball into the hands of his best playmakers, running back Christian McCaffrey, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, targeting them on 26 of his 41 passes. McCaffrey converted his 15 targets into 10 catches for 88 yards, 8.8 average, while Pearsall converted his 11 targets into 8 catches for 117 yards, 14.6 per catch. While not at Brock Purdy's level, Jones has operated Kyle Shanahan's offense effectively and efficiently, posting positive numbers in total EPA, EPA per play, EPA per pass, and success rate in the passing game, better than 50% per play. And he did it even after he re-aggravated the PCL strain he suffered in training camp, playing with and without a bulky knee brace at various points during the game. Shanahan did say that the knee issue caused him to stay away from plays that required a lot of movement from Jones, but it didn't seem to adversely affect Jones' passing, especially in the fourth quarter. Aside from a spike at the end of the game-winning drive, Jones was 9 of 12, 75% completion percentage for 98 yards, 8.2 per pass, and with both his 1 touchdown and his 1 pick. His passer rating in the final frame was 91.7, and he also had his longest throw of the day, hitting Pearsall with a 34-yard bomb on 4th and 2 that traveled 45.3 yards in the air and kept alive the drive that ended with the touchdown pass to Juszczyk. Ironically, the knee injury has Jones listed as day-to-day this week, so now his availability going forward is suspect, just as Purdy is looking likely to return to action. The 49ers will be in good shape if their QB1 is cleared for duty, but I definitely think Mac Jones has at least taken a step towards proving that, yes, he can run an NFL offense, and yes, he can lead a team to a come-from-behind win. Both things were suspect before he arrived in the city by the bay.
And if neither of them can play, by the way, former Jet backup Adrian Martinez is the other choice, by the way, as Anthony has dropped out, so he'll have to get back on in just a moment. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this team develops, especially if they have enough players to actually have a full team in 2025
Yeah, right?
for most of these games. All right. The difference between what you guys have talked about and what I'm about to talk about is the fact that these guys are Wentz and Jones are in their first season in their new teams. The guy I'm about to talk about, Marcus Mariota, star of season 1 on quarterback, watch it on Netflix, is actually been in this offense before. He didn't start a game last year, but he played in pretty much crunch time in the season finale against Dallas, and he also played earlier that season against Carolina, what ended up being pretty much a 3-quarter game for him, and he was good in both of them. He led them back to a victory in the former game that I mentioned, and in the latter game he looked really well, and he looked well again last week too. The things that Daniels, who has a knee injury, now he was 15 of 21, by the way, was Mariota, 3 incompletions, 2 drops, but Mariota is really the perfect backup. A couple of things. Number one, and I've said this a bunch of times, but I've never came up with a word for it until right now. Philosophy redundancy is what you want in your backup.
Okay.
Like, if you have a Jaden Daniels, who is a mobile quarterback, who is throwing the ball in the center, if you have that, you want somebody who backs him up who could do the same thing. You're not going to have like a Carson Wentz back up Jaden Daniels because you're now changing the offense completely. In this case, by the way, ironically enough, Carson Wentz was a former Commander. But in this case, Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota does the same thing Jaden Daniels does. He actually does a lot of this stuff a little bit better in terms of completing passes inside the numbers, which is something that was easy enough to do against the Raiders. He is a better zone reader. He had a keeper. He ran 6 times for 40 yards. And he is about as composed as you see when Daniels is running the ball. And I think one of the things that is interesting to see with Mariota is the fact that he knows where he is in this offense. And I think he's done a very good job allowing everybody to come in and be part of the offense. You got Terry McLaurin getting a lion's share of the targets. Deebo Samuel did some good things out there. And then Mariota provides possibly the best running on their team because I don't know who their starting running back is. Is it Crosby Merritt? Is it Jeremy McNichols? Is it the other guy? I don't know. But I think the one thing that Mariota does is provide a little bit of a stability to an offense. And kind of, it's not like you're getting Jaden Daniels back there because Jaden Daniels can go up a notch when needed, but he is day-to-day going into week number 4. But as Mac Jones actually has a revenge game coming up if he plays against one of his former teams in Jacksonville, Mariota is actually going to have a possible revenge game in one of his former teams going to Atlanta. So I have to say, these 3 quarterbacks, they made the grade on Sunday. But I think the one thing that you see with Mariota is may not be sustainable for a full season, but in a spot start. This is the perfect definition of a backup. Somebody who can take the playbook and not have to change a thing.
Yep.
Love to see that. Okay. Finally, to end this football, your F word here show, we go to college. And this is a big week. 3 top flight college football matchups on the horizon. And while a 12-team playoff might dilute the magnitude of these games, this D-Day in September will very likely affect who gets invited to CFP Selection Day in December. We're going to look for players on both sides of the coin, both teams. Anthony, let's talk about 17th ranked Alabama heading to 5th ranked Georgia. The Dogs are undefeated, shocker, favored against the once beaten Tide, but remember, Georgia's lost 9 out of 10 since 2008 in this rivalry. Of course, the one was a national title, but Alabama has gotten the lion's share of this since the Saban and now DeBoer era came in. Give me who to watch for in this key SEC battle.
Well, for Alabama, it's going to be the quarterback Ty Simpson, who's making his first SEC start of his young career. He's coming off back-to-back games where he was stellar against UL Monroe and Wisconsin, combined 41 of 46 for 608 and 7 touchdowns. And obviously going against Georgia, that's a big step up as far as competition. But there was a caveat in the fact that this is not exactly the same stout Georgia defense that we've seen in years past that has kind of been in front of Alabama. Um, the Georgia Bulldogs secondary has been kind of suspect. I mean, against Tennessee, Joey Aguilar lit them up for 371 and 4 touchdowns. The 2 interceptions obviously made the biggest difference in those games, but the pass rush for the Bulldogs only got to him one time, and he had plenty of time to pick them apart, and then take advantage of going to get shots downfield. Now, obviously, the Bulldogs are going to rush the quarterback and try to get Simpson uh, out of his comfort zone, much less the way Florida State did. If Simpson can continue to trust the offensive line up front in front of him, and you got to think that as much as Alabama, like Georgia, want to establish the run game, we got a secondary to the extent of Georgia that has been kind of suspect. You got to look for them to kind of open up the playbook and take some shots downfield. So I'm expecting Simpson to really be more aggressive as far as the play calling is concerned as well. For the Bulldogs, Gunnar Stockton is the guy I'm quarterback. Yeah, it's supposed to be going after the two quarterbacks. The season he's having 721 yards passing, 70.8 completion percentage, and 4 touchdowns. Has not thrown an interception yet this season. To also go with 124 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on 28 attempts. In week 3 over Tennessee, Tennessee was 22-31 for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, delivered on several throws and crucial downs. Uh, allowing the Bulldogs to go 8 of 17 on third down and 2 for 2 on fourth downs. Hit London Humphreys late in the game for a huge 28-yard touchdown that helped Georgia tie the game and eventually win it late in the game. It's going to be the key to this matchup is going to be up front, and obviously, which defense can establish some physicality. Alabama Crimson Tide has one of the stingiest defense in the country. They only allow 15 points a game, 108 passing yards per game. So Stockton, you gotta think that Stockton's going to be used a little more as a runner, just as much as you will be a passer. Thomas Castellanos of Florida State had an average over close to 5 yards per carry, and the Seminoles 31-17 win over the Crimson Tide a few weeks ago, back in week 1. So yes, it's going to be who establishes the physicality, who get a run game going, but more importantly, which quarterback can make the biggest plays down the stretch. Stockton has not not turned the ball over. Can the Crimson Tide force him to any mistakes? As far as Tom Simpson, can he stay in the pocket long enough to be able to get the ball downfield and attack this secondary that has been susceptible to giving up big plays?
It's very interesting what we've seen this year, especially with the SEC. It seems like no one knows. Well, I'll talk about in a second what direction this conference is going in, especially after Alabama's week 1 shocker. This is a huge game. I think this is about as huge of a game for Alabama in terms of boosting itself kind of back into the national spotlight a little bit after Florida State kind of took a little bit of luster off them in week 1, as it is for Georgia, because Alabama is like a little demon to them. They kind of need to get that demon away, especially now because they're going to be playing them one out of every 2 years with the new SEC schedule that just came out, where you're playing everybody in a 2-year span. So it'll be
yeah. By the way, you mentioned you mentioned nine of the last 10 that Georgia lost to Alabama. There's also a winning streak at home that's kind of on the line. I think it's what I'm looking it up now. I think it's 33 consecutive wins and at home for Georgia. So something's got to give Saturday night, and it should be a really fun game to watch.
Yeah.
I tell you, I mean, I know, Rabbi, you're the in-house SEC expert, so I'm going to defer to you here. But I talked about Gunnar Stockton at the beginning of the year when we were doing our college football preview, and the question would be, could he, as Anthony said, step up and make the throws that were needed, make the plays that were needed, when the running game stalls out? The difference between both quarterbacks here is granted, Simpson had a great day throwing for 382 yards against Wisconsin, but it's Wisconsin. I think
Wisconsin 2025.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that the game that Stockton put up against Tennessee, against an SEC rival, a top 15 team, and that to me, I think gives him a slight advantage in terms of which quarterback is coming in the better condition in terms of seeing defenses and playing tougher competition. Could that change Saturday night? Sure. But I got to tell you, I'm pleasantly surprised and somewhat impressed about the way Stockton has kind of improved as the season has gone on, culminating, leading the Bulldogs to that win over Tennessee.
Well, even though we didn't have a lot of hype, we had a lot of hype towards him in our preview show. This wasn't a guy who was expected to be like taking that huge step. He was just supposed to be there to right the ship, and he's made a good amount of plays. He is definitely coming here as the better quarterback. Now, when we get to Alabama's a huge test, but I feel like a lot of these teams are going to hit bumps in the road. You're going to see a lot of these quarterbacks, as I'm going to talk about in just a second, who have been on these big schools hitting bumps in the road when it comes to these games. Because when we've seen games like Texas and Ohio State early in the year, it was a defensive slugfest. Clemson and LSU. Remember when Clemson was considered a good team? That was a long time ago. And that was a defensive slugfest. So the games that you see are not always going to be shootouts like you saw with Georgia and Tennessee. And by the way, Georgia was probably one really, really, really easy kick away from losing to Tennessee and finally losing that streak to them. But it'll be very interesting to see how we get into this second level of quarterback play. The one thing that else is really interesting to me is almost how much in a lot of these games this year where it doesn't just come down to the quarterback play anymore. It comes down to intangibles towards the end of the game if the quarterbacks are not at the highest level. I mean, we all can't be John Mateers out there, and hopefully he gets better after his knee injury, unfortunately, is going to keep him out for so many weeks for Oklahoma. But before I continue ranting, let's take a break for the Big Ten. Jay, the last time Oregon football was on the Titanic Big Ten Saturday Night Showdown, it was last year at home versus Ohio State. They won. Don't mention the Rose Bowl rematch to Oregon, sore subject. Now the 6th-ranked Ducks head to Happy Valley to face the 3rd-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. It's a whiteout, and it's a 2024 Big Ten title game rematch. Jay, tell me who to look for.
I mean, it's the captain obvious choice. It's both starting quarterbacks. As you said, Oregon 4-0, 1-0 in the Big Ten. Penn State 3-0 overall. This is their Big Ten.
No Big Ten losses, by the way, in their history so far, because the Ohio State game technically is not a Big Ten loss from the Rose Bowl.
Technically. In a draft class that has no clear-cut QB1, this rematch of last year's Big Ten title game is a spotlight game for two of the signal callers that NFL personnel folks, several of whom will no doubt be there in person, but all of whom will have their eyes on for the remainder of the season is Penn State's Drew Aller, who was in the conversation last season before deciding to return to Happy Valley, and Oregon State's Dante Moore, who came to Eugene as a transfer from UCLA, and per J.J. Bailey of The Athletic has, quote, crashed into the conversation while, quote, captaining an Oregon offense that has mauled a parade of inferior opponents. So my what to watch for with each quarterback will also include some commentary from Dane Brugler, who's the draft guru for The Athletic. Let's start with the visiting Ducks and their QB1. Moore has completed 74.7% of his passes, good for number 3 in the nation, 962 yards, 240.5 per game. His 10.1 yards per attempt are good for 7th in the nation. He's thrown 11 touchdowns, tied for 6th in the nation against just 1 pick. His 195.9 passer rating is number 5 in the nation. The Oregon offense he directs is number 12 in FBS in total yards per game, 36th in passing yards per game, 10th in rushing yards per game, number 7 in points per game, 50.8. Here's Brugler's take on the draft aspect of it. This looks like an NFL starter, but it's been against average competition, average being the nice way to put it. So what will he do for his first real test against a respectable defense in a very tough road environment? This is the whiteout game at night at Penn State. So there's a lot we need to learn from Moore in this one. Completely agree. The case could be made that the gaudy stats are due to the Ducks beating up on said inferior opponents. But even if you classify playing Montana State, Oklahoma State, and Northwestern that way, Moore and the Ducks have done what he and they are supposed to do, beating them by a combined score of 162-30. Ducks come into this Saturday night whiteout game at Beaver Stadium off a 41-7 win over in-state rival Oregon State in the 129th edition of the Civil War. Moore went 21 of 31, 67.7% completion, 305 yards, his first 300-yard passing game of the season. He averaged 9.8 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, no picks, a 193 flat passer rating. A solid performance by Moore in this game, especially if it leads to an Oregon win, will not only keep his name in the quarterback draft class conversation, but could vault him into the Heisman conversation as well. Now, as for the QB1 for the home team, Nittany Lions, Aller has completed 64.8% of his passes for 626 yards at 208.7 per game, 7.1 yards per attempt, just 4 TDs, 1 pick, and a 137.3 passer rating. The offense is 46th in FBS in total yards per game, 59th in passing yards per game, 44th in rushing yards per game, 13th in scoring, 44 flat per game. Like Moore, Aller has yet to face an opponent that qualifies as formidable, as Penn State has blown out Villanova, FIU, and Nevada by a combined score of 132-17. Though by the numbers, Aller hasn't done anything to make NFL personnel folks stand up and take notice. Here's Brugler's take. 65% completions, only 4 touchdowns in 3 games. I don't know. If you're going to be a legit contender for the best team in the nation, a top quarterback, you would like to see him beat up on some of the lesser opponents on the schedule. Is his best game really going to come against Oregon as opposed to Nevada, FIU, Villanova? Maybe. And if it does, good for him. But Oregon will be one of the 2 or 3 best defenses that Aller will see all year. Penn State's last game, 52-6 win over Villanova, is a case in point as Aller went 16 of 29. That's just 55.2% completion, just 209 yards, 7.2 per attempt, 1 TD, 1 interception, his first of the season, and a 120.2 passer rating, his lowest of the season so far. Now, this can partly be explained by Aller losing do-everything tight end Tyler Warren to the NFL, and the Nittany Lions bringing in some new pass catchers, headlined by transfers Trevor Pena from Syracuse and Kyron Hudson from USC, that are still developing chemistry with their quarterback, hence the matchup with the Ducks, putting the senior passer squarely in the spotlight. It's also one putting his head coach squarely in the spotlight. I got to get this in because we can't not talk about it. Just remember, guys, James Franklin's record against ranked opponents at Penn State is 16-28, with a significantly worse record of 3-17 against top 10 teams during the regular season and 1-14 against top 5 teams since 2016. Here's some key stats to keep in mind for this game. Penn State's offense is 76th in third down percentage. They converted 38.9%. Oregon's offense is 10th, converting their third downs at a 58.1 clip. Oregon ranks 22nd in third down percentage defense, allowing its opponents to convert third downs at just 27.5%. Penn State's is 54th. They allow their opponents to convert third downs at a 34.8 rate. Penn State's red zone offense ranks 33rd, scoring touchdowns on 94.1% of their red zone opportunities, 16 of 17. Oregon's offense is perfect in the red zone so far this season, and their 20 red zone touchdowns are 7th most in the nation. On the flip side, Oregon's 112th in FBS in red zone defense as their opponents have scored on all of their trips. Then again, Oregon's defense has only allowed 4 trips into the red zone. Penn State has allowed opponents 6 trips into the red zone and given up 3 TDs for a 50% rate, tied for 4th best in the FBS. This Saturday night whiteout game is the first real test for both the Ducks and the Nittany Lions, as both teams harbored not just Big Ten title hopes, but national title hopes as well. I don't know about you guys. I will be watching.
I'll be out at dinner, but I will definitely be paying attention to the game. By the way, Moore is actually, if you wanted to know, and I don't think you did, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The 4 favorites right now for the Heisman. Stock is number 4 at 14-1. Carson Beck, who we talked about, is number 3 at 12-1. Moore's numbers, which have been amazing, 71 of 95. Now you says 962. 11 touchdowns. Did throw an interception against Northwestern in week 3. That's he's 12-1, the favorite by a lot right now. Fernando Mendoza of Indiana, who really proved it against a top 10 opponent last week.
It's kind of funny that all the crap that everybody gave Indiana last year, and what are they doing again? What did Kurt Signetti say he does? He just wins. It's funny. Somebody wrote in to Stuart Mandel, who's the editor-in-chief of college football for The Athletic, in his weekly mailbag, and asked him who this year's Indiana would be. He had a one-word response. That was it.
Indiana. Yeah, that's pretty simple, is that? But it's gonna be very interesting. It's a lot of weird stuff. Also, by the way, I'm sure Moore is happy he's not at UCLA anymore, because UCLA is just,
oh my God, they're a dumpster fire. They're a dumpster fire.
All right. Now back to your SEC program already in progress. Let's talk about LSU and Ole Miss. And I'm actually going to start with the road team first in LSU and talk about, again, we talked about Drew Rattler before, a Heisman front runner who hasn't really proved up to snuff earlier this year. He's had great numbers, but against no one. Garrett Nussmeier has actually not had a good year so far. He was the betting second choice in the Heisman going in. Not anymore. He's had some struggles in the games against Clemson and against Florida. It helps when the opposing quarterback throws 5 interceptions towards the defense during the game, but it's 24. People have said he needs his supporting cast to come together, and it hasn't really happened yet. And it's funny considering the fact that a lot of the issues with Brian Kelly's teams and LSU have been the defense, especially this Ole Miss game last year. But Aaron Anderson, one of the slot reception receivers, 293 yards on 21 receptions. They've had a good connection, but his other 2 in receiving yards played elsewhere in 2024. And Nick Anderson, who was a big transfer portal haul, has only had 7 catches for 44 yards. Nussmeier has completed about 65% of his throws, 689 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. In his last game on Saturday against Southeast Louisiana, he completed 80% of his passing attempts. But again, Southeast Louisiana, and Nussmeier needs a good game here, because this is the start of what's going to be his trip to Oxford is going to be the start of what's going to be a tough road ahead. 4 ranked matchups in 4 out of his next 5 games, and South Carolina, who may have one of the best pro prospects out there, Lenoris Sellers at quarterback, is the 5th. So Nussmeier is still kind of getting the ball rolling. Didn't look better in the second half against Clemson in the season opener. And again, the Florida game was just a complete clusterfuck on the Florida's part, just giving the ball to LSU at many a time. And really, LSU won that game on their defense more than they did their offense. So this is the get-back game that Nussmeier is going to need. If he can prove he can do this and he can have a really good game, guess what? It's going to be a lot better of an experience this year for a team that is right now ranked 4th in the nation and has national title hopes. Now, even though I am an LSU fan, I've been doing some studying on Mississippi by watching them this year, and I have 2 players to watch. I cheated. I'm sorry. The running back Q1 Lacey has been a beast this year. In his first game, he ran for 108 yards, 3 touchdowns on 16 carries. This is a 6'11", 210 sophomore transfer from Missouri. He is a beast. Second in all of FBS with 7 touchdowns. Leading the SEC in touchdowns. He averages 4.5 yards a carry. In his week 2 game against Kentucky, 138 and a touchdown. And that he's just been right now the main part of the offense. And the quarterback was, I say was, a little suspect with Austin Simmons taking over for Jaxson Dart this year. He was doing pretty well, but he did get a ankle injury in week 2. And then came in Trinidad Chambliss. And he is scary boy because we talk about Division II players. Some of them work out really well. And when they transfer over, one of the good things about the portal, some of them work out really well. Some of them don't. Chambliss right now is in the worked out very well category there, my friends. He had a 14-1 season at Ferris State, came over, was the backup, stepped in, and oh boy, he is dangerous as hell. In wins against Arkansas and Tulane in Simmons' absences, 660 yards, 3 touchdowns, 174 and 2 scores in the game. The Rebels are back to the fully functional offensive Death Star that Lane Kiffin wants to see. They average 43 points a game with him as a starter. That's 7th nationally. So the Rebels thought this was a high-level SEC backup. And then Simmons was at 100%. They basically said after that, Lane Kiffin said Simmons is 100% was our starting quarterback. And the keyword was he was our starting quarterback. Chambliss is a dual threat. Chambliss knows what he needs to do out there. And he is a guy who fits perfectly with the Lane Kiffin system, with the added bonus of being a runner that could scare a lot of defenses out there. So you put the running of the quarterback, you put the running of the running back together, and Ole Miss might finally break through this year because they've had all of the offensive talent in the world and sometimes just hasn't worked out in the end late. But here is a huge test for the 13th ranked Rebels, and they have the weapons to do it at home.
I tell you, Rabbi, I mean, I agree with you that Nussmeier has kind of both him and Aller, who were highly touted coming into this season. Neither one of them has kind of lived up to taking the next step. And you can throw.
And by the way, let's group in Arch Manning into that conversation. Quarterbacks that have
but here's the thing,
lived up to the hype.
No, I'm not going to include Arch because that's not where I'm going with this. You have 3 quarterbacks: Aller, Klubnik at Clemson, and Nussmeier, who were highly touted coming into this season. They were expected to build off of their numbers from last year and kind of really fight amongst each other to kind of create a quarterback class that's worthy of, their draft status. Neither one of them has done that. And, so this is it's going to be a chance for Nussmeier to kind of change that narrative. You talked about Ole Miss's running attack, and I kind of had to look this up. And you're correct. Here's the thing that's scary, okay? Chambliss leads the SEC in yards per attempt, 11.6. Adjusted yards per attempt, 12.89. Yards per completion, 17.1. He has 8 receivers, 4, he has 4 receivers plus his starting tight end, all of whom have at least 8 catches. Check out their average yards per catch in reverse. Check this out. Daquan Wright, 26.6. Harrison Wallace III, 21.4. Caden Lee, 19.5. Deuce Alexander, 17.8. Deshaun Stribling is the worst of them at 14.7. These guys not only can throw the ball, they're hitting big shots. So this offense is going to be more than LSU probably expected to have to deal with at the beginning of the season.
That's a Lane Kiffin. That's Lane Kiffin's strategy.
Yeah, but I mean,
They know big
granted,
plays.
but I don't think even Jaxson Dart last year didn't have that many receivers with average yards per catch that ridiculous.
Again, early competition, but this is
Early
still
days, granted.
a very, very
Oh, it's going to
loaded
be a
offensive
fun weekend
team.
of college football, guys.
All right. Yes, absolutely. And let's get out of here. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I am the only man in America who will not make a joke about Patriots wide receiver Kayshon Boutte. Steven
Oh,
Rabinowitz.
Hey, you know what? Nisa's son made all the jokes that were necessary, all right?
Yeah,
My nephew has you covered.
yeah, don't worry, Kayshawn. I know what it means to be the butt of a joke.
Yes, you do.
Anyway, youtube.com/on the sports lines on demand, facebook.com/on the sports lines on the live, and on the X/the Twitter, Jay.
Our handle is ONTH Sportslines, where you'll find a link to each new show like today's, along with tidbits and nuggets from world of sports that we think are worth your time to check out. This week, in honor of college basketball's favorite nun, 106-year-old Sister Jean, retiring from her active duties as chaplain of the Loyola University of Chicago men's basketball team, I have posted a link to a story about her from The Athletic from back in March of 2018. She was a spry 98-year-old back then, when she captured the collective attention of all of us during March Madness as she became college basketball's most recognizable fan during the school's surprising run to the Final Four. From pregame prayers, scouting reports, and beaming greetings of students on campus, she was a fixture beyond her duties with the team and became the national symbol of the 11th-seeded Ramblers' underdog story. We all became fans of her, if not the team. The story is well crafted, and the read is very much worth your time. And Anthony, props for you. Your social media post about it gave me the idea.
We love you, Sister Jean. Hopefully you enjoy your retirement, and we will see you next Saturday for a baseball playoff preview, which hopefully will not be a post-mortem for either of our teams. We'll see what happens. That'll be on the sports lines. Enjoy it. We'll see you next weekend. Good night, guys.
Have a good
Good
night,
everyone.